What is up, guys? It's Doo Poker here, back for another video. Okay, here's a hand I played today, and I wanted to go over it while it's fresh in my mind. And it really illustrates the power of MDA, and based on what level your opponent is thinking, how we want to play the hand. Okay, so we have Ace-Jack with the Ace of Spades in the small blind. Okay, so we decide to raise up in the small blind. Our opponent is in the big blind. He 3-bets to 9. Okay, now this hand can go as a call or a 4-bet. Okay, I prefer calling, so I call. All right, now I'm gonna switch back and forth here, but this is the hand. Okay, so I raise, he 3-bets, and we take a flop. Okay, now the flop is King of Spades, Queen of Spades, 6 of Clubs. I'm going to go back to the solver. King of Spades, Queen of Spades, 6 of Clubs. Okay, now there's no donking range, so we always check to the big blind. Now the big blind has a decision to make. He can either bet or check. It's not a range bet. Okay, so there's a lot of hands that don't really want to bet, like pocket 9s, pocket 8s. These hands, if he has 8s in his 3-bet range. Well, these hands don't really want to bet. They don't accomplish much by betting, okay? So he decides to check, okay? So very interesting. So now on the turn, what was the turn? 6 of diamonds, I want to say. Turn is a 6 of diamonds, okay? So the 6 of diamonds comes on the turn. Now, I have a decision to make. I can either probe or I can check. Now, my hand kind of wants to probe, even though it's almost a range check with our entire range. But let's look at incentives. Let's look at the MDA for 3-bet pot, in position, pre-flop raiser, small blind versus big blind, check fold frequencies, okay? See if I have those, okay? Here we go. Okay, so this is the field as out of position. Oh, actually, you know what? Sorry, guys. I'm gonna I'm jumping around here. This is the data. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the other data, but this is the data for the field as the 3-bet pot, in position, pre-flop raiser, big blind versus small blind. Okay, so what do we notice from the data? We notice that they overfold to a probe. Okay, they overfold to a probe. All right, now look at the percentages. Let's say we bet 70, okay? They overfold about 3%, okay? If we bet 50, 5%, right? Okay, so I decide to bet 75, okay? Now I want to show you one other thing, okay? MDA deviations. The highest folding frequencies by regs happen on low boards. Turn 4 to flush, turn 4 to straight, okay? So you can see, we know there's a 3% overfold, but the board is king high, so you should not expect an overfold here. Okay, 6% less than average. But I know about river tendencies, so I'm still incentivized to play my hand in a more aggressive manner. But we have to understand, on ace high and king high boards, you will not get overfolds, okay? So it's more GTO-ish, okay? So we decide to bet 75 here as a probe. Now, my opponent will call me here, okay? He calls, all right? So I'm going to go back and forth. Let's go to the real hand too. So we decide to probe 75, and he calls me on a 7 of spades river, all right? So I'm going to put this in the solver. Big blind calls, 7 of spades river. Okay, now we have a decision to make here. We have a decision, okay? We can bluff with our ace of spades jack X, because that's a very good bluff in theory. Okay, so we want to understand, is there an overfold on the river? Okay, so let's look at the check, call, fold frequencies, okay? Here's the check, call fold frequencies. Okay, so good samples for small blind versus big blind 3-bet. Let's take a look at the calculator, see if there's an overfold. Okay, so for 150, say we bet 150, we know they're supposed to fold 60% on average. They're folding 64, so we see the overfold, right? So on 210, we know they're supposed to fold. Oops. 210 divided by 310. There we go. We know they're supposed to fold 68%. They fold 72. So we are getting some slight overfolds, right? At 100, it's supposed to be 50. It's 55. So there is a slight overfold. So you're incentivized to bluff. Okay. So in game, I go all in and he folds. Okay. Nice hand. But what happens if my opponent understands MDA? What happens if I'm playing someone very, very good? Okay. Now, let's go to the other perspective. Now I'm going from the imposition preflop raiser perspective as the big blind. So if my opponent knows MDA, he knows the turn is over probed. Okay. He also knows there is an overfold. So what should he do? He should raise more on the turn. Okay, this is a very good exploit, guys. Huge overfolds, 10 to 15%. Okay, so you should be raising probes on the turn more as the 3-bet pot in position pre-flop raiser in the big blind. Okay, now let's say he calls. Let's say he's deciding to call. Now let's go to the river. On the river, we know that this is an over bluff spot. Now this is the field as the 3-bet pot out of position pre-flop caller. Check, bet, bet line. Small blind versus big blind. Reg MDA. Okay. The light green is over bluffed. Okay. The dark green is over bluffed but with low pair. What do you see from bet 70, 150? Way over bluffed. Okay. The sample's only 100 hands, but look at the discrepancy. 48, 38. 10% discrepancy. So if my opponent was very, very good, he would snap call me in this line. Okay, this is why you need to know that your strategy is 100% dictated on your opponent's level. If my opponent is on the same level as me, I would not make this bluff. Like if I was playing myself, I would not make this bluff because I know it's over bluffed. Okay, so in conclusion, we know from the small blind's perspective that when we probe turn, there's an overfold, and then when we bet river, there's a 5% overfold, okay? But we know from the imposition's perspective that they over probe turn, and then they over bluff river, okay? So, as a default, we should be over bluffing, but if I make this play and jam, and my opponent calls me with a hand like, let's say, ace queen off, a 0 EV bluff catcher, then I know he understands the spot, and I have to switch my lines to value. Okay? So this is showing you MDA from two different perspectives. I know that was a lot, but we got through it, and thanks for checking out the video. Please subscribe. New video every day, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I will see you in the next video.